Welcome to The Explainer. If you're looking to cut through all the noise and figure out exactly how governments are fighting back against modern digital threats, well, you're in the exact right place. Today, we're breaking down a brand new, highly severe piece of legislation coming straight out of Southeast Asia. We're talking about Cambodia's 2026 law on combating online scams. And listen, this isn't your standard, slow-moving bureaucratic update, not at all. This is an aggressive, frontline response to a crisis that is literally devastating lives across the globe. We're going to unpack exactly how this works, using the direct source material as our guide. So, let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive right into the reality of the digital frontline. Imagine rows of monitors, cables running everywhere, a highly organized space designed for one single malicious purpose: digital theft. Cambodia has found itself at the absolute epicenter of a massive global epidemic of online scams, and these operations are run out of compound rooms exactly like this one. The law we're looking at today, it wasn't drafted in some theoretical vacuum. It was created to directly target and completely dismantle the specific operations happening in those very chairs.
Here is our roadmap for today. 1. The online scam epidemic. 2. Fast-tracking the law. 3. Defining the cybercrimes. 4. The organized crime web. And finally, 5. Severe penalties and fines.
First up, Section 1, the online scam epidemic.
You know, to really understand the cure, we have to understand the disease. The driving force behind this law was a grim context, a massive surge in highly organized, incredibly lucrative online crimes, targeting victims globally. The legislation explicitly outlines the deceptive tactics used to just drain victims' life savings. And while things like online extortion and disguised product sales are incredibly serious, the core focus of these modern compounds are romance scams and what's known as pig butchering, which often funnel directly into fake investments. For those who might not be familiar, pig butchering is this horrific psychological tactic. Scammers build deep, fake relationships, often romantic ones, over weeks or even months. They basically fatten up the victim with trust, only to eventually slaughter them financially by convincing them to dump their life savings into fake investment portfolios or phantom projects. The deception is absolute, and the financial ruin, it's total.
Moving right along to Section 2, fast-tracking the law.
Because this epidemic was so widespread, and the financial bleeding was so severe, your standard, sluggish legislative process simply wasn't going to cut it. Just look at this incredible, rapid-fire legislative sprint from early 2026. The Council of Ministers approves the draft on March 13th. Boom. By March 30th, it clears the National Assembly. Just 4 days later, April 3rd, it passes the Senate. And on April 6th, it's officially promulgated by the King. We are talking about less than a month from the Council to full promulgation. And here's the absolutely crucial detail explicitly stated in the text. This law was given immediate, urgent effect upon promulgation. 0 waiting periods. They needed a legal hammer, and they needed it right that second.
And if you're wondering how on earth it moved so fast, it's because this was treated as a top-tier national security priority. It was championed by the absolute highest levels of the Cambodian government. The meetings were presided over by Prime Minister Hun Manet and spearheaded by the Minister of Justice, Kut Rith. Having that level of explicit involvement from top officials really underscores the intense, undeniable political will backing this legislation.
All right, Section 3. Defining the cybercrimes.
So, what does the legal text actually say? Well, the foundational concept really revolves around how it defines cyber fraud. It strictly targets the use of technology as the primary weapon for deception. It defines it as using technological systems, or basically using tech as a means, with deceitful intent to illegally obtain funds, assets, services, or to gain release from obligations. It's a broad net for sure, but a highly targeted one. Whether you're using a fake crypto trading platform, a spoofed website, or automated social media bots, if you are using a tech system to deceive someone out of their money or property, you fall squarely under the crosshairs of this legislation.
Which brings us to Section 4, the organized crime web.
Now, this is where reality gets incredibly dark. We're looking at a terrifying duality here: digital illusions versus physical atrocities. While victims across the world see this glossy digital illusion, a handsome suitor, a lucrative, sleek investment dashboard, the law actively recognizes the very real physical atrocities happening inside those compound walls to make those illusions possible. The legislation explicitly calls out and links cyber fraud to a web of severe physical crimes: human trafficking, illegal detention, torture, the illegal use of weapons, and drug trafficking. The scammers sitting behind the keyboards, they are often victims of human trafficking themselves, held completely against their will and subjected to torture just to meet financial quotas. The law recognizes a hard truth. You cannot combat the digital crime without simultaneously dropping the hammer on the physical, organized crime syndicate running the whole operation.
And that leads us to our final section, Section 5, Severe Penalties and Fines.
Because the underlying crimes are so incredibly severe, the law brings out the absolute hammer. 500 million real. That represents the maximum standard fine. To put that into context, the standard fine range for simply committing the act of cyber fraud starts at 200 million and scales all the way up to this 500 million real mark. The goal here isn't just a slap on the wrist, it's designed to instantly bankrupt the standard operators and completely strip them of the illicit wealth they've stolen.
But listen, financial penalties are only half the equation. 10, that is the number of years representing the maximum prison sentence. The law stipulates up to 10 years in prison specifically for those organizing or leading these scam compounds. If you're running the location, managing the captive workforce, or orchestrating the digital fraud at an aggravated level, you are facing a full decade behind bars.
And for the ringleaders, the financial penalty scales up massively. 1 billion real. For aggravated offenses, specifically organizing or leading these cyber fraud operations in a clustered or structured manner, the maximum fine doubles to a staggering 1 billion real. This is the ultimate financial penalty in the law, completely designed to dismantle the very top of the organized crime hierarchy.
So, we've seen the epidemic, the lightning-fast legislative response, the crystal-clear definitions, the dark physical reality of the crime web, and of course, those devastating penalties. It is a comprehensive, urgent attack on a truly global problem. But it leaves us with one massive lingering question. Will this unprecedented speed and severity finally crush the compounds? We know the law is incredibly powerful on paper, but the real test is going to be in the enforcement on the ground. I highly encourage you to keep tracking the real-world impact of this new law because the stakes of this frontline battle literally affect digital citizens worldwide. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Stay curious and keep learning.